The sound of shattering porcelain silenced the entire restaurant. It wasn't just any restaurant. It was the Gilded Lily, the only place in New York where billionaires dined alongside killers. Aria, a 22-year-old bus girl invisible to the world, froze as the shards of a $300 plate scattered across the polished Italian shoes of the most dangerous man in the city. Every guest held their breath, expecting a gunshot. Instead, Dante Moretti, the capo who ran the East Coast, slowly stood up. He didn't look at the mess. He looked at her. He raised one finger, pointed at her trembling figure, and gave a command that changed history. "That girl, in my car, now." The Gilded Lily smelled of truffle oil, old money, and fear. It was the kind of establishment where a bottle of Chateau Margaux cost more than Aria Brooks made in 6 months. She moved through the dim amber lighting like a ghost, her black uniform slightly too big for her slender frame, her head down. The rule was simple: be invisible. If the wealthy patrons didn't notice you, you kept your job. If the other kind of patrons, the men in the Brioni suits with bulges under their jackets, didn't notice you, you kept your life. Aria's hands were raw from scrubbing, but she gripped the heavy tray of dirty dishes with a desperate strength. She needed this shift. Her father's gambling debts hadn't died with him 3 months ago. They had transferred to her like a genetic curse. The loan sharks, specifically a low-level thug named Mick the Rat O'Connor, were demanding $5,000 by Friday. Aria had $42 in her pocket. "More wine, sweetheart," a voice slurred. Aria stiffened. It was table 4. Mr. Sterling. He was a hedge fund manager with sweaty hands and a belief that the service staff was included on the menu. "I will get your server, sir," Aria whispered, keeping her eyes on the tablecloth. She reached for the empty appetizer plate. Sterling's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. His grip was wet and tight. "I don't want the server. I want you. You have pretty eyes. Why are you hiding them?" "Please let go," Aria said, a panic spiking in her chest. She tried to pull back, but he yanked her harder. The tray in her other hand tipped. Gravity took over. The heavy ceramic platter slid, collided with a crystal water goblet, and crashed to the floor. Crash! The sound was violent, echoing off the mahogany walls. In a normal restaurant, people would gasp. In the Gilded Lily, the room went instantly, terrifyingly silent. The piano player stopped mid-chord. The shards hadn't just fallen on the floor. They had scattered across the aisle, landing on the pristine, hand-stitched leather shoes of the man sitting at the center table. Table 1. The table nobody approached, without an invitation. Dante Moretti sat there. He was 32, though his eyes looked 1,000 years old. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that fit his broad shoulders like armor. He was sipping an espresso. His dark hair swept back his face, a mask of bored indifference. Next to him sat his consigliere, a man named Luca, and 2 bodyguards who looked like they chewed concrete for breakfast. Mr. Sterling, the hedge fund manager, immediately released Aria's wrist and turned pale. "Oh, God! Mr. Moretti, this clumsy idiot. Look what she did." Sterling stood up, wiping wine off his lap, desperate to distance himself from the disaster. "She tripped. I tried to catch her." "Stupid girl. Do you know whose shoes those are?" Sterling shouted at Aria, his voice cracking. Aria was on her knees, her hands trembling as she reached for the sharp porcelain. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. I'm so sorry. She knew she was fired. Worse, she knew who Dante Moretti was. Everyone did. He was the king of New York. He didn't sue people. He erased them. Dante slowly placed his espresso cup on the saucer. The clink was the only sound in the room. He looked down at his shoes. Then he looked at Sterling, who was sweating profusely. Finally, his gaze shifted to Aria. She looked up terrified to meet his eyes. They were the color of cold steel. For a second, she saw something flash in them. Not anger, but recognition. Shock. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. Dante stood up. He was tall, looming over everyone. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Mr. Sterling," Dante said. His voice was a low baritone, smooth as velvet, but heavy with threat. "Mr. Moretti, I assure you I will pay for the cleaning. I will have this girl fired immediately," Sterling babbled. Dante ignored him. He took one step forward, crushing a piece of porcelain under his heel. He stopped inches from Aria. She flinched, expecting a kick, a blow, something. Instead, Dante extended a hand. The room gasped. Aria stared at the hand. It was large, scarred across the knuckles, but manicured. Trembling, she placed her small, calloused hand in his. He pulled her to her feet with effortless strength. He didn't let go of her hand. He turned to Luca, his second-in-command. "Clear the tab," Dante said. "And him?" Luca asked, nodding toward Sterling. Dante looked at the hedge fund manager with a look of absolute disgust. "He touched what is mine. Break his fingers. Make sure he never trades a stock again." Sterling screamed as the bodyguards descended on him. Aria tried to pull her hand away, terrified. "What do you mean, yours? I don't..." Dante tightened his grip, pulling her close. The scent of expensive cologne and gun oil overwhelmed her senses. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable, intense, and terrifyingly possessive. "The shift is over, Aria," he said, using her name, though she had never told him what it was. He turned to his security detail, dragging her with him toward the exit. The manager of the restaurant rushed forward, stammering. "Mr. Moretti, is there a problem?" "The girl." Dante stopped at the door. He scanned the room, ensuring every eye was on him. "That girl," Dante announced, his voice carrying to the back of the kitchen. "She comes with me. Now. If anyone asks where she went, tell them she belongs to the Moretti family." Before Aria could scream, she was swept out into the cool night air and shoved into the back of a waiting armored Rolls-Royce Phantom. The heavy door slammed shut, sealing her fate. The interior of the Rolls-Royce was silent as a tomb. The windows were tinted so dark that the city outside was just a blur of neon streaks. Aria sat pressed against the leather door, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Dante sat on the other side of the wide back seat, reading messages on a secure tablet. He hadn't looked at her since they got in. "Where are you taking me?" Aria asked, her voice shaking. "I don't have any money. If this is about my father's debt, I promise I'm working on it." Dante tapped the screen, then locked the tablet. He turned his head slowly. "Your father, Jack Brooks, a gambler, a drunk, died owing 60 grand to the Irish mob. You've been paying 300 a week just to keep them from breaking your legs. Is that accurate?" Aria's mouth went dry. "How do you know that?" "I know everything that happens in my city, Aria. Are you going to hurt me?" Dante studied her face. He seemed to be searching for something, a lie, a mask, a hidden intent? That depends on how you answer my questions. The car swerved smoothly into the underground garage of a massive glass spire in Manhattan, the Obsidian Tower. It was Dante's fortress. The car stopped and the door was opened by armed guards. "Walk," Dante commanded. He led her to a private elevator that required a retinal scan to open. As they shot up 60 floors, Aria's ears popped. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that was larger than the entire house she grew up in. It was a masterpiece of modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, black marble floors and modern art that looked like it cost millions. But to Aria, it looked like a cage. Dante threw his suit jacket onto a couch and loosened his tie. He walked to a bar and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He held one out to her. "Drink. It will steady your nerves." "I don't want a drink. I want to go home," Aria said, finding a sliver of courage. Dante slammed the glass down on the counter. The liquid splashed over the rim. The violence of the action made Aria jump back. "Home." Dante laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You don't have a home, Aria. You have a roach-infested apartment in Queens that Mick O'Connor is planning to burn down on Friday if you don't pay up. I just saved your life." He walked toward her, backing her up, until her legs hit the edge of the leather sofa. She fell back onto it. He loomed over her, placing his hands on the back of the sofa, boxing her in. "Now tell me the truth." Dante hissed, his face inches from hers. "Who sent you?" Aria blinked, confusion warring with fear. "What? Don't play the innocent waitress with me. It's too convenient," Dante growled. "You're working at the Gilded Lily, the one neutral ground for the families. You accidentally cause a scene at my table. You have the face of a ghost, and you're wearing that." He reached out his fingers, grazing her collarbone. Aria flinched, but he wasn't trying to hurt her. He hooked his finger around the thin, tarnished silver chain she always wore hidden under her uniform. He pulled it out. Dangling from the chain was a strange, heavy ring. It looked like iron, engraved with a wolf holding a rose in its teeth. "Where did you get this?" Dante demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "It was my mother's," Aria cried, clutching the ring. "She gave it to me before she died when I was 5. It's all I have of her. Please don't take it." Dante stared at the ring, then at her eyes. He looked shaken. For the first time, the icy demeanor of the Mafia boss cracked. He stood up abruptly and walked to the window, running a hand through his hair. "Your mother," he muttered to himself. "Jack Brooks wasn't your biological father, was he?" "I don't know. He never talked about it. He just said, 'My mother was a mistake he made in Italy.'" Dante turned back to her. The look in his eyes had changed. It was no longer suspicion. It was something intense, protective, and calculating. "You aren't going back to Queen's, Aria. You can't keep me here. That's kidnapping. Call it what you want," Dante said, walking over to a control panel on the wall. He pressed a button, and heavy steel shutters began to descend over the windows, locking the penthouse down. "You are the most dangerous loose end in this city right now. If the Rossi family finds out who you really are, they won't just kill you. They will start a war that burns New York to the ground." "Who am I?" Aria whispered, the weight of the situation crushing her. Dante looked at her, his expression grim. "You're the key to the vault, Aria. And you're the daughter of the man I killed 10 years ago." Aria didn't sleep that night. She sat in the corner of the guest room, which was more luxurious than any hotel suite, clutching a pillow. The door was locked from the outside. "The man I killed." The words echoed in her mind. Dante Moretti, Her captor had killed her biological father. And who was he? Why did a simple silver ring make the most powerful man in the city look like he had seen a ghost? Morning came with a soft chime at the door. It unlocked. A woman in a crisp grey suit entered, pushing a cart. "Good morning, Miss Brooks. Mr. Moretti has requested your presence for breakfast. I have brought you fresh clothes. Your uniform has been incinerated." Arya looked at the clothes. A white silk blouse, tailored black trousers and shoes that looked impossibly expensive. She changed quickly, realizing she had no choice. She had to play along until she could find a way out. She followed the woman to the terrace. Dante was sitting at a glass table drinking coffee. The view of Central Park was breathtaking, but Arya only saw the drop. "Sit," Dante said, not looking up from a newspaper. Arya sat. "I want answers, Dante. You drop a bomb like that and lock me in a room." Dante folded the paper. He looked tired. "You have your mother's temper. I remember that. You knew her, briefly, years ago, before she ran away to America with a gambler to hide you." Dante took a sip of coffee. "The ring you wear is the crest of the Valentinetti family, the old kings of Sicily." Arya laughed nervously. "I'm Italian, sure, but royalty? You're insane." "Not royalty," Dante corrected. "Mafia royalty. Your father was Lorenzo Valentinetti. He was the capo dei capi, the boss of bosses. He controlled the trade routes from Europe to the US. But he had a secret vault, a ledger digital and physical containing the dirt on every corrupt politician, judge and rival family in the world. It's worth billions. It's leverage that makes you untouchable. What does this have to do with me? When Lorenzo died, when I took his territory, the ledger vanished. The rumor was he encoded the location into a biological key, a scan, DNA. Or, he pointed to the ring, an object entrusted to his heir. Arya looked down at the ring. "It's just a piece of metal." "To you, yes. To the Rossi family, who are currently my biggest rivals, it is the ultimate weapon. If Vinnie Rossi knows you exist, he will peel the skin off your bones to get that ring, and the password only you might know." "I don't know any password," Arya shouted. "You might not know that you know it," Dante said calmly. "It could be a lullaby, a date, a phrase." Suddenly Dante's phone buzzed. He picked it up and his face hardened. "We have a problem." "What?" "Mick the Rat, the loan shark you owe money to. He's been bragging in a bar in the Bronx that he has leverage over a girl who was just picked up by Dante Moretti. He's trying to sell your information to Vinnie Rossi." Dante stood up, buttoning his jacket. "I have to handle this." "You're going to kill him?" Arya asked, horrified. "I'm going to negotiate," Dante said, checking the gun in his shoulder holster. "Stay here. Do not open the door for anyone but me or Luca." "Take me with you," Arya said suddenly. Dante stopped. "Absolutely not. He has my ID, my birth certificate, photos of my mother. If you go in there shooting, he might burn them. Or the police might find them. You said I need to disappear. I can't disappear if my life is in his filing cabinet." Dante looked at her with grudging respect. "You're brave. Stupid but brave." "I'm desperate," she corrected, "and I'm tired of being afraid of men like him." Dante considered it. "Fine. But you stay in the car. If you step 1 foot on the pavement, I will chain you to the radiator when we get back." The ride to the Bronx was tense. Arya watched Dante check his weapon. He was a killer, yes. But strangely she felt safer in this armored car with him than she ever had in her apartment. They pulled up to a grimy dive bar called the Shamrock. "Stay," Dante commanded. He got out, followed by Luca and 2 guards. Aria watched through the tinted glass. She saw them enter the bar. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Suddenly the back door of the bar kicked open. Mick. The rat came stumbling out, clutching a bag, running towards the alley. He was escaping, and he was holding a battered metal box, her father's lockbox. Aria didn't think. She didn't remember Dante's warning. She saw her mother's photos, her only connection to her past, running away. She opened the car door and sprinted. "Hey!" Mick shouted as he saw her. He pulled a knife. "You little witch, you brought the heat on me." Aria froze the knife, glinting in the sunlight. She was 10 feet away from him in a dirty alley. Mick lunged. Bang! A single shot rang out. Mick's knife clattered to the ground. He screamed, clutching his hand, which was now a ruin of red. Dante walked calmly out of the back exit of the bar, his smoking gun in hand. He didn't look at Mick. He looked at Aria, his eyes blazing with fury. He walked past the screaming loan shark, grabbed Aria by the arm, and pinned her against the brick wall of the alley. His body was hard against hers, his face inches away. "I told you," he snarled, "to stay in the car." "He had my things," Aria gasped, heart racing. "I had it handled," Dante roared. "Do you have a death wish because standing in an open alley in the Bronx is a good way to get it granted?" "I'm not your prisoner," she yelled back. Dante stared at her. The adrenaline was pumping through both of them. The tension shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was electric. He looked at her lips, then back to her eyes. "No," he whispered, his voice rough. "You're not a prisoner. You're mine to protect. And you are making it very difficult." Suddenly, tires screeched at the end of the alley. A black van pulled up. The side door slid open, and the barrel of a submachine gun emerged. "Get down!" Dante shouted. He threw Aria to the ground, covering her body with his own, as bullets chewed up the brick wall above their heads. The world collapsed into noise and violence. The rat-tat-tat of the submachine gun tore chunks out of the brickwork, showering Dante and Aria with red dust and debris. Dante was a heavy weight on top of her, an immovable shield of muscle and expensive tailoring. She felt him jerk once, sharply, but he didn't make a sound. "Luca, return fire!" Dante roared over the din, rolling off Aria and pulling his own weapon in one fluid motion. Luca and the other bodyguard, who had taken cover behind the armored Rolls-Royce, opened up with their own sidearms. The alley became a deafening echo chamber of gunfire. The black van's tires squealed, and it peeled away, leaving the smell of burnt rubber and cordite hanging heavy in the air. Dante was instantly on his feet, pulling Aria up. "Are you hit? Check yourself." Aria patted her body, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "I think I'm okay. My knee is bleeding." She had scraped it badly when he tackled her. "We have to move. They'll circle back or the cops will come." "Neither is good." Dante's voice was ice cold, his business mode fully engaged. He shoved her into the back of the Rolls-Royce. As they sped away, leaving the groaning Mick O'Connor and the chaos of the Bronx behind Aria, noticed a dark stain spreading on the left shoulder of Dante's grey suit jacket. "You're shot," she whispered. Dante glanced at his shoulder dismissively. "It's a graze, a through and through. Ruined a $5,000 suit, the bastards. We need to go to a hospital." Dante laughed, a harsh sound. "The kind of hospitals I go to don't ask questions. But we aren't going to the city. The penthouse is compromised. They knew we were in the Bronx. That means I have a leak." His eyes were terrifying when he said that. A leak in the Moretti organization was a death sentence waiting to happen. They drove for 2 hours eastern Long Island, the landscape changing from urban decay to manicured wealth. They arrived at a sprawling modern estate, hidden behind high hedges and iron gates right on the ocean front in Southampton. It was stark, cold, and beautiful, much like its owner. The house was staffed by a silent elderly couple who didn't blink at the sight of a bloodied Mafia don and a disheveled waitress. Upstairs in a master bedroom overlooking the churning Atlantic, Dante finally took off his jacket and shirt. Aria gasped. The graze was an ugly furrow carved into his deltoid muscle, still oozing sluggishly. "There's a medical kit in the bathroom," Dante said, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking pale but composed. "Luca is securing the perimeter. You have to help me." Aria hesitated. An hour ago she wanted to run from him. Now she was holding gauze and antiseptic. "I don't know how to do this." "Clean it. Pack it. Wrap it. It's not brain surgery, Aria. Just don't faint on me." Her hands trembled as she cleaned the wound. He hissed through his teeth when the alcohol touched raw flesh, his muscles bunching under her fingers. Being this close to him, touching his bare skin, was overwhelming. He was a tapestry of scars, knife wounds, bullet holes, stories of a violent life written on his body. "Why did you save me in the alley?" she asked quietly, taping the bandage in place. "You could have stayed behind the car." Dante looked up at her. His eyes, usually so guarded, were hazy with pain and adrenaline. "I don't let what's mine get broken. You're under my protection, Aria. Until I say otherwise, you are the most valuable thing in my life." The intensity of his statement made her breath hitch. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was a declaration of ownership. But coming from a man like Dante Moretti, it felt terrifyingly similar. "Now." Dante stood up, wincing slightly. "Where is the box?" Aria retrieved Mick's metal lockbox from where she had dropped it in the entryway. They sat on the floor of the living room, nursing glasses of very old whiskey. Dante shot the lock off with a silenced pistol he produced from a drawer. The box contained the sad debris of her life, her birth certificate, her mother's Italian passport, photos of a smiling woman Aria barely remembered holding a baby, and at the bottom, an old leather journal. Aria opened it. It was written in Italian. "I can't read this," she said. Dante took it gently. He scanned the first few pages, his brow furrowing deeper with every line. The silence stretched taut. "What does it say?" Aria demanded. Dante looked up, and the expression on his face chilled her to the bone. It was a look of profound betrayal. "It's your mother's diary," Dante said slowly. "She writes about Lorenzo, how much she loved him, and she writes about why she ran. It wasn't just to hide you from his enemies, Aria. She was hiding you from his allies." He turned the book so she could see a passage. He pointed to a name written over and over again. Salvatore Moretti. "My father," Dante whispered. "Before I killed Lorenzo, my father was his underboss. According to this, my father was the one who tipped off the feds to Lorenzo's operations years ago. He set Lorenzo up to fall so he could take over. Your mother discovered it. She knew my father would kill her and you to keep the secret buried." The implications hit Aria like a physical blow. The feud between their families wasn't just business, it was foundational. "Your father betrayed mine," Aria said, her voice hollow. "And then I killed yours to clean up my father's mess," Dante finished grimly. "The history between us, it's painted in blood, Aria." The air in the seaside mansion became suffocating. They were inextricably linked by a past they hadn't chosen, bound together by sins of their fathers. "So what happens now?" Arya asked, feeling tears prick her eyes. Dante reached out his hand, hovering near her face before he dropped it. Now I have to find the rat who sold us out in the Bronx, and I have to finish the war my father started. But first," he finished his whiskey in one gulp. "First we sleep. Tomorrow we hunt." He led her to a guest room, checked the windows, locked the door, and then, surprisingly, didn't leave. He sat in the armchair in the corner, his gun on his lap. "Sleep, Arya. I'll watch." She didn't think she could sleep knowing he was there watching her. But exhaustion was a powerful drug. The last thing she saw before she drifted off was the silhouette of the King of New York guarding her like a dragon guarding its hoard. The next 2 days at the Hamptons safe house were a strange interlude of peace. It was the eye of the storm. Dante spent most of his time on encrypted phone calls on the terrace, barking orders in Italian that sounded like distant thunder. Luca and 4 other heavily armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Arya confined to the house, and the immediate grounds felt like a prized bird in a gilded cage. Yet her feelings toward her captor were becoming dangerously complicated. Dante was ruthless, yes. He had Luca break the fingers of a gardener he suspected of being too chatty in town. But with Arya his rough edges softened. He insisted on changing his own bandage, but he let her help him put on his shirt, his eyes tracking her movements with an intensity that made her skin burn. Over dinner on the second night, steaks cooked rare by Dante himself, the atmosphere shifted. "I have to go back to the city tonight," Dante said, cutting his meat with surgical precision. Arya dropped her fork. "You're leaving me here. It's safer. I've located the leak. It's a capo in Queens. I have to make an example of him personally. If I don't, I look weak. And in this life, weak means dead. How long will you be gone?" She hated the note of neediness in her voice. 24 hours. Luca stays here. Rocco and Vinny, the guards, stay too. The house is a fortress. You don't leave the indoors. Understood? "I'm not a child, Dante." He stopped eating and looked at her. "No, you are a target. Vinny Rossi knows I have you now. He knows you're Valentinetti's daughter. He will tear the city apart to find you. Do not test me on this, Arya." He left at midnight. Before he got into the car, he did something that shocked them both. He grabbed the back of her neck and pulled her in for a searing, bruising kiss. It tasted of coffee and possession. "Be here when I get back," he growled against her lips, then was gone. Arya touched her lips, stunned watching taillights fade. The next day passed slowly. The air was thick with impending rain and anxiety. Luca was constantly checking monitors in the security room. Around 4:00 p.m., a delivery van pulled up to the front gate. "Expecting anything?" Arya asked Luca, who was in the kitchen getting coffee. "No." Luca frowned, speaking into his radio. "Rocco, check the gate. Who is that?" Rocco, the burly guard patrolling the front, walked toward the intercom. Arya watched from the window. She saw Rocco talk for a moment, then inexplicably he punched in the code to open the massive iron gates. "What is he doing?" Luca yelled, slamming his coffee cup down. "Rocco, stand down. Do not open the gate." Rocco ignored the radio. The van rolled through. "Get to the panic room in the basement. Now!" Luca grabbed Arya's arm, pulling her toward the stairs. They never made it. The front door exploded inward before they reached the hallway. Rocco stood there holding a shotgun. Behind him were 4 men Arya didn't recognize wearing ski masks. "Rocco, what are you doing?" Luca barked, putting himself between the men and Arya. He drew his weapon. Sorry, Luca, Rocco said, his face impassive. Rossi pays better, and he doesn't shoot his own people for small mistakes. You traitorous piece of... Rocco fired. The shotgun blast caught Luca square in the chest. He flew backward, crashing into the wall, sliding down, leaving a smear of bright red. Aria screamed a raw sound of terror. Before she could run, 2 of the masked men grabbed her. She fought, kicking and biting, tasting leather gloves and sweat. Easy, princess, one of them grunted. Mr. Rossi wants you in one piece. Don't make us damage the merchandise. Rocco walked over to Luca's still body and spat on it. Then he looked at Aria. Tell Dante he should pay more attention to his own house instead of chasing ghosts. They dragged Aria out into the rain, threw her into the back of the van, and zip-tied her wrists. As the van sped away, Aria stared at the closed gate of the safe house, her mind replaying Luca's death, realizing with sickening clarity that the safety Dante promised was an illusion. She was alone, and she was headed into the heart of darkness. Vinnie Rossi's base of operations was a nightmare manifested in concrete and steel. It was a defunct meat-packing plant, located deep in the desolate industrial sector of the meat-packing district, a place the gentrification of the city had not yet touched. The air inside was freezing heavy with the metallic tang of old blood bleach and the rotting sweetness of decay. Aria was shoved roughly onto a rusted metal chair in the center of the cavernous kill floor. Her wrists were zip-tied behind her back, so tightly that her hands were already going numb. Above her heavy iron hooks hung from motorized chains on the ceiling, swaying slightly in the draft like gallows. She shivered, but not just from the cold. She was surrounded by shadows. Men with guns stood at the perimeter, their faces obscured by ski masks, watching her with predatory indifference. From the darkness of the office catwalk, footsteps echoed slow, deliberate, heavy. Vinnie Rossi emerged into the harsh halogen light. He was the antithesis of Dante. Where Dante was polished granite and ice, Vinnie was grease and heat. He was shorter, with a paunch straining against a cheap silk shirt, and he smelled overpowering of stale cigar smoke and expensive tacky cologne. His eyes were like polished black stones, devoid of warmth or mercy. So, Vinnie sneered, descending the metal stairs. The sound clanged through the empty space. The lost princess returns to the mud. Aria Valentinetti. You look just like your whore mother, you know that. Aria lifted her chin. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, but she refused to cower. She had spent the last 3 days watching Dante Moretti command rooms with silence. She tried to channel just a fraction of that steel. "My name," she said, her voice trembling only slightly, "is Aria Brooks." Vinnie laughed, a wet, wheezing sound that turned into a cough. He walked a circle around her chair, his fingers trailing across her shoulders. Aria flinched at his touch. "Brooks," Vinnie mocked. "A name for nobodies. A name for people who scrub floors. You are somebody, sweetheart. You are the key to the kingdom. You are the walking, breathing vault of Lorenzo Valentinetti." He stopped in front of her, leaning down until his face was inches from hers. His breath was foul. "Where is the ledger, Aria?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, tears stinging her eyes. "Dante told me about it, but I've never seen it. I was 5 years old when my father died." "Don't lie to me," Vinnie roared, his mood swinging instantly from mocking to violent. He backhanded her across the face. The blow was sudden and exploded in a burst of white light behind her eyes. Aria's head snapped to the side. She tasted the copper tang of blood where her tooth cut her lip. Lorenzo wouldn't leave his legacy unguarded, Vinny hissed, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at him. He left it with you. What did he give you, a key? A sequence of numbers. A nursery rhyme? Nothing. Aria cried out. Please, I don't know. Vinny's eyes dropped to her hand. He grabbed her left hand, twisting her wrist painfully to examine the silver ring. The wolf crest seemed to mock him, sealed shut. This, Vinny muttered, obsession glazing his eyes. It's always about the ring with you people. The old king's seal. Is the code inside it? Is it etched on the band? He yanked at the ring. It wouldn't budge. It was as if the metal had fused to her skin. It stuck. Aria gasped. Stuck. Vinny smiled, and it was a terrifying expression. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a switchblade. With a flick of his wrist, the blade snapped open, glinting under the industrial lights. There are ways to solve stuck, Princess. If the ring won't come off the finger, we take the finger off the hand. Aria stared at the blade, horror seizing her chest. Dante will kill you for this. He will burn this whole city to find me. Vinny laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. Dante is busy cleaning up a mess in Queens that I created. I sent him on a wild goose chase. By the time the great Dante Moretti realizes his little bird has flown the coop, I'll have the ledger, and you'll be fish food floating at the bottom of the Hudson. Across the river in a warehouse in Queens, the air was silent. Dante Moretti stood over the broken body of the capo, who had betrayed the location of the safe house. The man was dead. Justice had been served. But Dante felt no satisfaction, only a gnawing, cold dread in the pit of his stomach. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with a bloodied hand. It was a message from an unknown number. No text, just 2 images. The first was a grainy photo of Luca lying dead in the hallway of the Hamptons estate. Dante's jaw tightened. Luca had been his brother in everything but blood. The second photo stopped his heart. It was Aria. She was tied to a chair in a place that looked like a slaughterhouse. Her head was lolled to the side, and a thin trickle of blood was running from her lip. The sound that ripped from Dante's throat was not human. It was a guttural roar of pure, unadulterated fury that made his own soldiers step back in genuine fear. Dante wasn't a man who lost control. He was the Ice King. But the ice had just shattered, revealing an inferno beneath. Boss? His new second-in-command, a harsh man named Soul, asked tentatively. What is it? Dante looked up. His eyes were void of business, void of strategy. They contained only murder. They have her. Dante whispered the words, sounding like grinding stones. Rossi has her. It's a trap, Dante. Taupo urged, checking his watch. Rossi wants you to come charging in. He'll have 50 guys waiting in the rafters. We need to plan. Plan. Dante interrupted, his voice terrifyingly quiet. He walked to the trunk of his car and popped it open, revealing an arsenal of military-grade weaponry. He picked up 2 assault rifles and tossed one to Sal. Call everyone, Dante commanded, checking the magazine of a handgun. Soldiers, associates, street runners, anyone who owes the Moretti name a favor. We are going to the meat-packing district. And what are the orders? Sal asked, racking the slide of the rifle. Dante turned to him, his silhouette framed by the city lights. Scorched earth, Dante said. We burn it to the ground. No one gets out of that building alive. Except the girl. Back in the meatpacking plant, time was running out. Vinny held the knife blade against the skin of Arya's finger, just above the knuckle. He was sweating profusely now, his patience eroding. "Last chance, Arya. How do I open the ledger?" Arya closed her eyes, trembling uncontrollably. She tried to retreat into her mind, to find a happy memory to hold on to before the pain started. She thought of her father, Lorenzo, a vague memory of a big man with a booming laugh, smelling of espresso, spinning her around in a garden in Italy. What did he used to say about the ring? The wolf. The wolf waits. "I'm going to count to 3, Vinny threatened, pressing the blade down. A drop of blood welled up. 1, Arya sobbed. "I don't know. 2, boom. The world exploded. The heavy reinforced steel doors at the front of the plant didn't just open. They were blown off their hinges. A concussive wave of pressure and debris swept through the cavernous room, knocking the knife from Vinny's hand and sending him stumbling backward. Thick grey smoke billowed into the entryway, swirling in the draught. Through the smoke, a figure emerged. Dante Moretti stepped into the light. He looked like the angel of death. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket. His white dress shirt was rolled up to the elbows, revealing forearms tense with lethal intent. In each hand, he held an automatic rifle. Behind him, a wall of shadows materialized, the Moretti army heavily armed and moving with military precision. "Rossi!" Dante bellowed. His voice echoed off the steel girders, louder than the machinery, louder than the ringing in Arya's ears. "Get away from her before I carve your heart out with a spoon!" Vinny scrambled up from the floor, panic seizing him. He realized too late that he hadn't just angered a rival. He had awakened a monster. "Kill them! Kill them all!" Vinny screamed to his men, concealed on the catwalks above. The warehouse erupted into a war zone. Muzzle flashes lit up the dark corners of the ceiling. Bullets pinged off metal-shattered concrete and tore through flesh. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of automatic fire and screaming metal. Dante didn't take cover. He moved forward. He fired in short, controlled bursts, dropping Rossi's men from the railings above. He was a force of nature, cutting a path straight through the chaos toward the center of the room. His eyes never left Arya. Vinny, realizing his men were falling too fast, made a desperate move. He lunged for Arya. He grabbed her by the hair, hauling her up from the chair. He wrapped his arm around her throat, pulling her body against his as a human shield. He snatched his knife from the floor and pressed it against her jugular vein. "You want her, Moretti?" Vinny shrieked, his voice cracking with terror, as Dante closed the distance to 20 yards. "Come and get her. But take one more step, and I paint the floor with her blood." Dante stopped. He dropped the empty rifles. His hands hovered over the pistols at his waist. The room went momentarily silent, save for the echoes of gunfire and heavy breathing. Arya looked across the distance. She saw Dante's chest heaving, saw the blood on his shirt, saw the absolute terror masked behind his rage. He had come for her. He had burned the city for her. And in that moment, looking at him, Arya realized she couldn't just be the damsel anymore. The warehouse was a cavern of deafening noise and blinding flashes. The air tasted of copper cordite and the sour stench of Vinny Rossi's fear. Arya was being dragged backward, her heels skidding uselessly against the slick, grime-coated concrete floor. Vinny's arm was a vice around her throat, cutting off her air, while his other hand pressed the cold, serrated edge of the switchblade against the soft skin under her jaw. "Back off! I swear to God. Moretti, I'll open her up right here, Vinny screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. He sounded like a cornered rat, dangerous and unpredictable. 20 yards away, Dante Moretti was a silhouette of pure vengeance amidst the chaos. He moved through the storm of bullets with a terrifying, fluid grace. He had discarded the assault rifles and was now dual-wielding heavy-caliber pistols, firing with a rhythmic, mechanical precision that chilled Arya to the bone. Bang. Bang. Two of Rossi's men on the upper catwalks crumpled, falling to the ground with sickening thuds. Dante didn't look at the bodies. He didn't look at the sparks flying from the machinery as bullets ricocheted around him. His eyes were locked entirely on Arya. They were voids of icy blue fire, promising death to anyone who stood between him and her. He stepped over a dying gunman, without breaking stride, his face a mask of concentrated rage. "There is nowhere to run, Vinny." Dante's voice cut through the din, impossibly calm, compared to the violence surrounding him. It wasn't a shout. It was a judgment. "Let her go, and I'll make it quick. Keep holding her, and I will make your death last for days." "You think I'm stupid?" Vinny shrieked, tightening his grip. Arya gasped as the blade broke her skin, a warm trickle of blood sliding down her neck. "She's my ticket out. You want her. Drop the guns. Drop them, or she dies." Time seemed to slow down for Arya. The roar of the gunfight faded into a dull thrumming in her ears. She could feel Vinny's frantic heartbeat against her back, hammering like a bird trapped in a cage. But then she felt her own heart. It was pounding against her ribs, hard and heavy. But it wasn't beating with fear anymore. Throughout her life, Arya had been invisible. The bus girl, the debtor's daughter, the victim. She had spent the last 3 days being moved from one cage to another, protected by men, threatened by men, owned by men. As she looked at Dante, this powerful, terrifying man, walking through fire for her, something inside her snapped. It was a brittle, ancient lock, breaking deep in her soul. She remembered the ring. A sudden vivid memory of her father Lorenzo flashed in her mind. It wasn't the vague memory she had struggled with earlier. It was crystal clear. She was 5 years old, sitting on his lap during a thunderstorm in Palermo. He was holding her hand, tracing the wolf on the silver ring. "The wolf is a hunter, Arya." His deep voice echoed in her memory. "But the wolf on this ring, he is sleeping. He only wakes up when the blood runs hot, when the heart beats not for flight, but for the fight, when you are ready to bite back. Bite back." Arya's vision sharpened. The terrified girl from the Gilded Lily died in that moment, strangled by Vinny Rossi's arm. The woman who took her place was the daughter of the Capo dei Capi. She felt the silver ring on her finger suddenly grow warm, vibrating against her skin, as if it had an electrical pulse. Her heart rate wasn't just fast, it was synchronized with a lethal intent. Vinny was distracted, his eyes darting frantically between Dante's approaching figure and the exits. He shifted his weight, preparing to drag her behind a pillar. It was now or never. Arya didn't scream. She didn't struggle aimlessly. She channeled every ounce of her rage into a single, calculated movement. She lifted her right leg and stomped down with all her strength, driving the hard heel of her expensive boot directly into Vinny's instep. The sound of small bones crunching was audible even over the machinery. "Ugh!" Vinny howled, his grip loosening reflexively as pain shot up his leg. Arya didn't stop. She didn't try to run away. She threw her head back, using the back of her skull like a hammer, smashing it directly into Vinny's nose. There was a wet crack, and hot blood sprayed onto her cheek. Vinny staggered back, blinded by pain, his hands flying to his ruined face, the knife clattering to the floor. Arya dropped to her knees and rolled, scrambling behind a heavy, industrial mixer. "Dante, now!" she screamed, her voice raw and commanding. Dante didn't hesitate. He didn't need to aim. The shot was an extension of his will. He raised his right hand. Crack! Crack! 2 shots rang out in perfect unison. Vinny Rossi jerked violently backward, as if yanked by an invisible rope. 2 dark holes appeared in the center of his forehead. He collapsed onto the oil-stained concrete, his eyes wide and staring at nothing. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the settling dust and the distant sirens of approaching police. Dante holstered his weapons in one smooth motion. The mask of the killer vanished, replaced by sheer frantic desperation. He sprinted across the gap between them, skidding to his knees beside Arya. "Arya!" He pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest. His hands were everywhere, touching her face, her shoulders, her hair checking for bullet holes, for broken bones. "Look at me! Look at me! Are you hit?" Arya clung to him, burying her face in the crook of his neck. She smelled the gunpowder, the sweat, and the expensive cologne that was distinctly him. She was shaking the adrenaline crash, hitting her like a wave. "I'm okay," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I'm okay. You came. You really came." Dante pulled back, his hands framing her face. His thumbs gently wiped away the blood on her cheek. Vinny's blood, and he tilted her head to inspect the cut on her neck. His jaw tightened when he saw the line of red, his eyes darkening. "I told you," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I burn the world for what is mine. I would have killed 1,000 men to get to you." He kissed her, then a kiss that tasted of iron and survival. It wasn't gentle. It was a desperate affirmation of life in the midst of death. Suddenly, a soft humming sound interrupted them. A cool blue light began to emanate from between their joined hands. Arya pulled back, eyes wide. "My hand. It's burning again." They looked down. The silver ring on her finger was glowing intensely. The tiny, intricate carving of the wolf had changed. The jaw, which had been clamped shut for 20 years, was now mechanically open. The biometric lock, Dante realized, staring at the artifact in awe. "I thought it was a myth. Lorenzo didn't use a password. He used a physiological trigger." "What do you mean?" Arya asked, breathless. "It reads your biometrics," Dante explained gently, taking her hand. "It monitors pulse blood pressure, cortisol, and adrenaline. It was designed to stay locked during normal life, or even during fear-flight response. It only unlocks when the wearer enters a state of fight. Controlled aggression, the specific heart rate of a Valentinetti going to war." He carefully slid the ring off her finger. It came off effortlessly, now the internal clamps retracted. With delicate precision, Dante hinged the wolf's head back fully. Embedded inside the hollow chamber of the ring was a microchip no larger than a grain of rice. "The ledger," Dante whispered. "The blackmail files, the corrupt judges, the politicians, the bank accounts. It's all here. This chip is worth more than the entire island of Manhattan." Arya looked at the tiny chip, then at the carnage around them. She looked at Vinny Rossi's body, then at the loyal soldiers of the Moretti family securing the perimeter. Finally, she looked at Dante. She realized that the debt was gone. The fear was gone. She held the power to destroy the entire underworld, or to rule it. "What do we do with it?" she asked. Her voice was steady now. The tremor was gone. Dante looked at her, searching her eyes. He saw the change in her. She wasn't the waitress anymore. She was a queen who had just won her crown in blood. "Whatever you want, Aria," Dante said, placing the ring in her palm and closing her fingers over it. "We can destroy it, vanish and live on a beach in Italy, or we can use it. We can bring every family in the 5 boroughs to their knees. We can rule everything." Aria looked at the ring, then slid it back onto her finger. The blue light faded, but the wolf's jaw remained open ready. "We don't run," Aria said, her eyes matching the cold steel of his. "We stay. The Valentinetti and Moretti families are united now. Let them know we have the ledger. Let them know that if they come for us, they don't just face the wolf. They face the dragon too." Dante smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile with genuine joy. It was dangerous, sharp, and breathtakingly handsome. "As you wish, my queen." He stood up and offered her his hand. Aria took it, gripping it tight. Together they walked past the bodies of their enemies, stepping out of the shadowed warehouse and into the blinding light of the New York dawn. The sirens were getting closer, but it didn't matter. They were untouchable now. They owned the city. And so the girl who collected plates became the woman who collected souls. In the brutal world of the Mafia, innocence is a liability, but love. Love is the most dangerous weapon of all. Dante and Aria didn't just survive the war. They ended it, sealing their legacy in blood and silver. Did your heart stop when Aria finally fought back? If you loved this intense Mafia romance saga, please smash that like button. Right now it helps us create more long-form stories for you. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who needs a new obsession, and subscribe with the notification bell on so you never miss the next episode. Do you think they should use the chip for good or evil? Let us know your theory in the comments below. Thanks for watching.